Riz says nothing for the first 25 minutes of the film, letting that character come out with just actions.
The essence of screen acting is really in the eyes, and he's got it.
They may try to scare you, and they may try to make a deal. This is the only deal.
When I saw it, it reminded me somewhat of going back to the 70s, the kinds of thrillers that we don't see as much anymore. Is that something that you might have been inspired by?
Yeah, I mean, when I first came across the material, it felt like there was a flavor there. There was a chance to kind of tap into that 70s edgy, paranoid, you don't know where the truth lies kind of vibe, you know. And you know, the films you've mentioned, well, particularly 3 Days of the Condor, Clute, French Connection. You know, the city of New York is a huge part of all of those things, and it's element of danger that was all sort of part of the flavor of the city. Trying to express the New York of this film was important to me.
Well, it's so well shot, and it makes New York just look, you know, alive and beautifully captured here. Maybe a New York I haven't seen on screen in a while like this. Who's your cinematographer here?
Giles Nutchins, who I've done 12 films. I think he's done either 8 or 9 of them. It was a tough shoot. 27 days for 300 scenes, you know.
Wow.
And so we really had to kind of get in there. And you know, a lot of those, you know, like the big Times Square scene, that was all totally a live location. So we were very much kind of working on our feet, and the actors are kind of thrown in the deep end. And that's kind of the way I like to work, you know, and we're being opportunistic with what's there and never really doing the same thing twice.
I knew nothing about this, and I know it's an old thing for the deaf and things, this messaging kind of system that he's using for other purposes.
It is an old technology that's mostly been replaced now by cell phones and things like that. But that technology, it still exists. There are still relay centers. When we were scouting at Newark Penn, you know, there were like 4 or 5 phone booths, and then there was a relay booth that's still there with a pad on. When we were sort of researching, we met some spooks, some spies, and you know, some of those methods that are there in the film, we backed up with things they're talking about. If you have a digital footprint, it's very hard not to be traced. So avoiding it as much as you possibly can, and is a way to do it. You know,
it's amazing too, and you know, it's so difficult. I think as a director, I would think, to make being on so many phone scenes where there's so many phone conversations with your actors and that sort of thing, and typing on a keyboard and watching this over and over. How the hell did you make it so cinematic?
One of the first things that when I came across the material was the relay operators were not really alive, and I tried to make sure that they hadn't read their text before they got it, so that what they were reading was almost first time when we were shooting it. Bringing them alive as the intermediary character just gave you a whole bunch of editing opportunities to try and shape it. And then Riz obviously is saying nothing. Riz says nothing for the first 25 minutes of the film.
Yeah, he has no dialogue at all, and we know so little about him.
Lily had to very concentrated thing. Most of her dialogue scenes were in her apartment, so she had to do so much kind of emotional stuff and so much of a journey. You're building up this kind of connection between what you think are 2 lonely people, and you're doing it in a dislocated manner, which is interesting.
This really is a lot about loneliness. I mean, when you look at this character and what he's been through and the way he operates and all of that, it is loneliness. And
yeah. The thing that gives him his superpower, as it were, to be below the radar, is also the thing that is his vulnerability in some way. And that's being exploited and by these guys who, again, we researched a lot of these corporate kind of henchmen, security people. They come from law enforcement or again, the security services, military, and get paid the extra dollar and do some things that maybe they shouldn't do. Interestingly, those guys had such a great dynamic that I could have put a lot more of it in there, but we cut it out because they started to become too kind of almost enjoyable, and you started to lose a sense of how threatening they're supposed to be. So.
Right, yeah, and Sam Worthington, of course. Yeah. Riz Ahmed's a terrific actor.
He's a great actor, yeah. No,
yeah. The essence of screen acting is really in the eyes, and he's got it.
He's someone who I've wanted to work with for a long time, so it was a great pleasure to work with him. And he's incredibly dynamic and watchable and interesting. And obviously, he had so little dialogue to work with, at the beginning, and just letting that character come out with actions and just the looks and everything, you know.
How collaborative are you to your actors in letting them develop
Very
the character?
collaborative. I'm a loose director. I like to look at a scene as a set of ingredients, and then we just play with the ingredients. So everything, and I don't really like continuity. So I don't like anyone just like setting themselves into one rhythm and repeating it from every angle. I like just exploring it different ways, and knowing that nowadays there's not much of a chance of a hair in the gate or any of those things. So, you know, you've got it in one, you know what I mean? So you don't need to do it the same thing again. And so, yeah, we're always exploring stuff. And I always have a very kind of, you know, fun and dynamic relationship with the cast.
There's a scene in this, the concert scene, where they go into the concert, and it's so meticulous. Everything has to work there. I was thinking, watching it, of Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much, that takes place partly in a concert hall where this kind of thing is going on. I'm wondering if that was in your head, if you'd seen that. Yeah, you did.
It's kind of a direct homage to that.
I thought so.
And then the music they're playing is Schubert piano trio, which is kind of the bulk of the music in Barry Lyndon. So it's a little bit of an embarrassing homage, but it just the material seemed to dictate it. It just felt like if you're going to have this scene in a concert hall and things are things are happening behind the cover of darkness in there, you might as well kind of lean into it, you know.
This is also very pertinent right now, I think. If you look at it with the whole idea of whistleblowers and what they have to do, I mean, you know, and how they, if a whistleblower is there and they just want to give the material back and get it back in, and all the problems of being a whistleblower.
My heart goes out to whistleblowers. Everyone that we interviewed for research, you're tremendously brave. Quite often you're left with nothing. And even those that we met who had a decent financial settlement felt lonely and sad and questioning whether they'd actually done the right thing. So it's a really hard thing to have done, and exploring the kind of that world. Obviously, we're messing with it to some extent. Was definitely a really important part of it. And here's to the whistleblowers.
And these corporations that basically want to thrive on misinformation. Misinformation's a big thing in our world currently right now. And this, you know, it's important to have them and truth tellers and people like that, but it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah, and it's harder to know where the truth is, and you know, it's a hall of mirrors out there. You know, it's you know, and that's, I guess that's what the film's trying to speak to some extent.
You are a director that I have found. I mentioned some of your credits in bringing you on here, who doesn't do the same thing twice. Tell me about your mantra as a director. What attracts you to these kinds of movies? Well,
I guess I'm not trying to. I mean, I think the sort of second or third film I did, I started thinking, my God, the mechanisms of making films, the process can start becoming a bit of a grind. So I'm always trying to find material that's different and a process that's different. So it feels like there's some freshness in there rather than just schedule bashing the whole time and just trying to get through it. So I guess there's an instinct there.
Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you.
David Mackenzie.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out.